Mira Business FM, Dubai's home of business radio.
This is Mira Business FM. It's the morning drive and it's sustainable work performance next as we kick off 2026. Lots of senior professionals thinking maybe less about the quick wins and more about performance that lasts. Now, in high pressure environments, high performance environments, sales leadership, consistency and resilience and mindset can be the difference between burnout and breakthrough. So our next guest brings a unique perspective, I think, from the world of elite sport through his work with executives, with leaders, into practical strategies for the workplace, from building confidence through repetition to using setbacks as fuel rather than friction. Jazz Ferguson is a mental performance coach, also a professional basketball player who spent 15 years competing internationally. Jazz, welcome. Nice to see you.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
It's good to have you here. You are still competing, of course. I shouldn't just say 15 years of competition. You were raised in Louisville, Kentucky. You've played basketball professionally. There's a long list here: Italy, Greece, France, Australia, now the Middle East. So I want to start there, really. 3 questions. Bear with me here. When, where, how did all your... Where does the athlete, the career in athletics in basketball come from?
So my professional career started in Australia, 2012. I was fortunate enough to lead a team to winning a championship as a rookie.
Okay.
And I would say that was a cornerstone of my career. I then transitioned over to Italy for 9 consecutive years. And I pretty much built my career and my reputation there. Had a brief stint in Greece during COVID, and post-COVID, I did another year in Italy, and the last 3 years were in France before relocating here.
Okay, so you're well-traveled. Very different kind of life to life in the US. How is that, what's the word? How's that informed you as a person, you think? Because I think of the US as being, it's the US, we're all very aware, but I always think Americans outside of the US are different.
So what I understood immediately was that I was a very closed-minded American because before becoming a professional athlete, I'd never been outside the United States.
Right.
Never even had a passport.
Well, that's the kind of, that's the standard that we all hear, isn't it?
It's stereotypical, but it's very true. And going to Australia first was very eye-opening because it was an English-speaking country with very open-minded people.
Yeah.
And I think hearing people talk about gap years and traveling the world throughout their entire childhood was something that was a foreign concept to me, but it opened my eyes and allowed me to prepare for the culture shock that I would initially get moving to Europe, where English was not the first language everyone was speaking.
How was that? How's your Greek, your French? I mean, you were in Italy, 9 seasons, so 9 years.
I do speak Italian.
How is your Italian? Is it pretty good?
My Italian's pretty good. My wife and I, we actually, when we're around English-speaking people, if we need to communicate in a discreet way, we speak Italian to each other.
Nice, I like it. Yeah, I like it. Very sneaky, but nice.
Yeah.
There's another thing about you. Brought up in Louisville in Kentucky, so Kentucky Derby, obviously, or Derby, if you prefer. But it's also famous for somebody else. Probably reasonable, I think, to say the sporting icon, certainly of my lifetime, maybe of all time. Possibly Muhammad Ali. It would be kind of remiss of me not to ask if he was an influence on you growing up. And actually, when you came in, we were sat having a talk just before we came on. And you said I was brought up on, what was the street you were brought up on?
West Muhammad Ali Boulevard.
Okay, so probably the right thing to ask you. And you met Muhammad Ali a few times.
Yes, so I was in the 6th grade when Muhammad Ali came to speak at Newburgh Middle School. It was one of the most defining days of my life because we had always heard about him. We had always understood that he came from Louisville.
Mm-hmm.
And, though at that time he was an older man right before, the Parkinson's started to kind of take over his life, he was still very, very charming and talkative at that moment. And it's a moment that I'll never forget. He's the biggest influence on my life. Just being able to see someone that comes from directly where I come from with so much confidence, with so much charisma, and traveling the world, being on the world stage and handling it with such class and such conviction that, he's my idol for sure.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, I grew up with him. My father is a huge Muhammad Ali fan, watching the fights in the 70s in particular. Actually, Cassius Clay fan before that as well. But he's one of those people. I've watched reruns of he was on a show called Parkinson, which is a talk show in the UK, and he and Michael Parkinson had a great rapport together. But I can't think of anybody, certainly in sporting terms, very few with that kind of genuine charisma. It was an act, but it kind of was who he was.
Yeah, I think he was just able to find that sweet spot where you're acting, but you're also you're feeding off of the other person and playing into their skills and playing off of the crowd. And I can't name another athlete like him. There's other athletes with.
Racking my brain, and I can't.
I
There's nobody there.
genuinely can't.
I mean, in your sports, who in your sport stands out? Who in basketball really stands out for you?
Well, vocally, I would say that charisma would probably be Magic Johnson.
Probably,
because of his smile, because of his personality, and just the likability.
Yeah.
But voice-wise, I would say it would be the two biggest guys in the sport would be LeBron and MJ. They both, when they speak, everyone listens, and they have had so much influence. So, I would say LeBron.
Yeah, okay. Very cool, man. You're in the Middle East now. You're still playing. You are also, and this is kind of really the reason why you're here. Would it be fair to call you a life coach, mental performance coach, probably more appropriately? You advise on consistency, discipline, perseverance, and how they can create unshakable confidence. So important, obviously, in sport. And mental resilience that gives you the ultimate competitive advantage. Is that a fair description?
Absolutely. Resilience is a key aspect of the competitive approach because, you're not always going to get the result that you are striving for, but you have to know how to navigate that because, when you think of resilience, it's not always based on a negative result. And I think athletes learn that from a very young age. And when you start to process that at the higher levels, it for sure gives you a competitive advantage.
Okay. So you have a company, Reps with Jazz, and I guess that's repetition. And what you do is you mentor young people, you mentor leaders so they can manage social pressures, whatever those social pressures are. Just talk me through the beginnings of your career as a life coach. I'm calling it a side hustle because you're still playing, but I know it's obviously more than that. But when did it start?
So I read a book called Think Like a Monk a few years ago, let's say 3 years ago. And when I started to shape some of the strengths that I already had in my personality, which were discipline, which were consistency and drive and relentlessness, this book started to help me kind of nurture those skills and create a system for myself that I knew that I could help other people apply to their lives because I've always been the guy that's been the bridge between the older athlete and the younger athlete and being able to connect the two worlds because, it's a very, very different mindset. And I would say it started with mentorship on the court with younger athletes.
Okay.
and bridging the gap. And then going and gaining my certification through J. Shirley Certification School.
Hmm.
And what changed my life really was throughout the course. Everyone that was taking the course during the time that I was in the course would always say things to me like, I wish I could bottle up your mind and sell it. I wish I could have the work ethic and discipline that you have. And it really just reassured me that my mind and the way that I've always approached my process was something that was of expert level. It's not something that has given that I developed in the last 2 or 3 years because I'm not that tall. So my competitive advantage has always been my mind. Being able to build that out as a system and apply it in different spaces is what basically my company is built from.
I mean, they say that about the truly great sports people. If you're, I mean, in basketball, classically, you're 7 feet tall is obviously an advantage, but the truly great players in any sport really are the young players that do really well and contribute to the team. And then as they get older, maybe not as fast as they were, not as tall as they could be, whatever it would be, but really think about what and have that kind of mental advantage.
Yes.
You've mentioned a couple of things there, discipline and work ethic a couple of times. Clearly, quality is really important in the workplace. Fine. Where does yours come from? Is that something you've learned? Is it passed down through family?
It was something that was developed through comparison, honestly. I had a few friends in my childhood they developed really quickly. And I would always look back and realize that they liked the game because they were born with the size and the talent. I loved the game. And them being better than me at 12 and 13 years old created this measuring stick for me that allowed me to start a routine of waking up, doing 100 push-ups in the morning, doing 100 sit-ups before I went and caught the school bus, then working on my ball handling and my shooting. Once I started to see very small, tangible results, I became obsessed with this process. And this obsession allowed me to go to heights that I didn't even imagine in the beginning.
Okay.
But it ultimately started to drive me to a level of having some ambition with the sport, wanting to become a college athlete, understanding that I had surpassed the level that I was playing at, having a shot at making the NBA, not quite getting the opportunity, but then using that as a blueprint to building a career internationally.
Okay, and the opportunity to travel and learn and everything else. I don't want to sound too, I don't know, evangelical about this, but you preach, and I'm using quote marks there around preach, but that it's about adopting the mindset of a professional athlete at work. If you want to transform results at work, the thing is, though, I would observe most of us don't have elite athlete mindsets. I certainly don't. I'm looking at you thinking, I wonder if he still does 100 sit-ups every morning when he wakes up. You do. I knew you would. How do you get that elite athlete mindset? How do you coach people to get that?
So the first thing I always advise people to do, and especially when I'm doing one-on-one coaching, is to audit your life.
Okay.
When there are areas of weakness that you would like to improve, we have to have a realistic assessment of that. And then we build out who you are, what your habits have been, where you currently are, and where we want to go. Once you have a great, clear picture of that, once you find the clarity that you need, well, then we start taking, next steps of building out a system, building out a plan to get there. And then the actionable points are always the hardest steps to take. The young mentors that I teach, I tell them, listen, learning is one element, but applying is really what gets you over the hump.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, that makes sense. One of the things that I would observe is the physical aspect of being a professional athlete, and I guess when people hear, athlete mindset, they're like, "Oh, he's going to make me, run 10 kilometers. He's going to make me do this." So, what does that mean? What does it really mean when you apply an athlete mindset to business and to leadership?
So immediately my mind goes to approach. An athlete normally has a very, very diligent routine when they wake up in the morning. It can vary. It can be meditation. It can be a workout. It can be reading. It can be something that stimulates your mind that you depend on every single day to get a small win each day. So, for example, myself, I cannot function throughout the day if I don't wake up at 5 a.m. and get a full body workout in the weight room or on the treadmill or running on the track, because it helps me feel like I achieved something early in the day.
Okay.
And that gives me the momentum to then knock out the priorities that I need to tackle. By midday, you feel like you've had a full day. Well, then that's where the progression takes place of, if that's generating leads in sales, if that's hitting a target that you've never hit before, you build out that routine first, hold yourself accountable to stick to that routine. After you start getting those small wins, your life almost falls in order to then allow you to knock out the priorities. Whatever your job is, whatever your goals are, you can start taking steps towards that.
And I guess most of us maybe think we're not routine, but most of us have a routine. So there is that kind of repetition thing going on in our lives. And this is one of the things that you talk about, repetition, and that reps remove doubt. So how does repetition build confidence in the workplace in the same way as it does on the court or on the pitch?
So in the workplace, I would say, let's take, we're in Dubai, so let's take a real estate agent, for example.
Okay.
It's extremely hard to generate consistent clientele.
It's a tough job.
Let's say you approach 10 clients this week and you get 10 no's. It's disheartening. It's, something that could shake your confidence. But if you allow that to keep you in a position where you don't continue to build momentum, then you will never progress in the way that you want to. You have to use the wins or losses as a building block. It's a repetition. When I say reps remove all doubt, it's about volume of how much you try. How many calls are you making? How many times can you fail? Because when you fail and you have the ability to assess those failures, well, you're not going to keep making the same mistake. You can evaluate the process of why you are missing so many shots. But also, continuous reps allow you to build the confidence in when, hey, no is just a word in the dictionary. It's not something that controls your emotions. It's not something that controls your ultimate level of outcome, because we all know that volume means you're going to get the result the more you try. But failure can't be the deterring factor in that, because we're all going to fail. I put myself in a position where I'm shooting 500 shots a day. My goal is to make all 500 shots. But if I miss 150 of those 500 and I shoot 500 shots per day, well, I'm still making much more than I'm missing. And it prepares me for the moment where it's time to close one of those big clients that would have said no to you 6 months ago, but you've changed your approach. You've assessed how you go about presenting your information, and ultimately you understand the process of how you start to close. Just speaking in a real estate perspective.
Okay, but no is just a word in the dictionary. It reminds me Steph Curry came into my head then, and I watch him shoot, and I know he takes that approach. His kind of philosophy is kind of similar, I think, from what I've read, from what I've heard him say. But I watch him and I think I'd really like you to miss because I'm fed up with you getting every basket now. It's just, but that's the mentality you need to foster, isn't it, to get to this point?
Yeah, absolutely. So with athletes, especially the ones that have the most visibility, the viewers only see a finished product.
This is true. Yeah.
No one knows what goes on behind the scenes, how much work it takes to improve not only your skills, but to sustain a body. To be 33, 34 years old and to be doing this at a very high level, at the highest level in the world, someone like Steph Curry, he is taking extreme care of his body. He is putting hours and hours and hours into stretching and compression therapy. And that's ultimately the sacrifice that you have to take when you want to get to the elite level. It's the unseen hours that sometimes are boring, sometimes are just not what you feel like doing. And that's the aspect of discipline. It's being able to sustainably do what you don't feel like doing, but to gain the advantage, to gain the result in the long run. Because for athletes, the ultimate result is the playoffs or winning a championship, and you have to go through an entire marathon to get there. So believing in your process and really being willing to run a marathon every single year.
Yeah. So it's about sustaining performance and keeping at that level. The thing is, in sales, in leadership, pressure's there. Pressure's everywhere. It's constant. So, what can people in sales or leadership learn from athletes when it comes to training to perform with that pressure so constant? How can professionals do that?
So pressure is always a privilege for athletes. I don't think it's such a it's viewed that way in something like sales or leadership. But for leadership in particular, I think handling pressure is a very important when you attach it to the culture that you have around your team or your staff in leadership, because when you have so much pressure that you're dealing with on a daily basis, you have to be able to hold people accountable to do their jobs. So the aspect of holding someone accountable helps them elevate in pressure situations. Having a clear mind to make decisions, being fully prepared in understanding the task at hand, whether that's research, whether that's statistics, all of these things in the athletic space, they come to the forefront, which are unseen as well. When we talk about playing a game, it's not just you play the game on the court and it's a pressure situation because it's a big game. You're doing player analysis, statisticals, analyzing strengths and weaknesses of your opponents, analyzing the advantages that you have. And in the workplace, you can do this as well. You can understand what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, prepare to strengthen your weaknesses. So when those pressure situations come up, you're able to rely on a well-rounded kind of arsenal instead of only relying on their strengths, because most of us as humans, we rely on our strengths and we use our weaknesses as, crutches, or we avoid them altogether. So, you know, understanding your environment, creating a culture where accountability is acceptable and comfortable. Sometimes, even if it's not comfortable, that's just what successful cultures or winning teams have in their environment, is the element of accountability.
Yeah, and you have to learn to accept that, I guess, as well. Let me ask you a little bit about failure. You mentioned this a little bit, but I think it's an interesting one because, dealing with failure is it's just part of life. It's what we have to do. You've played internationally for 15 years, so I guess had some setbacks. How has failure shaped your career and how you face the next challenge, if you like? And if you could relate that to how perhaps leaders should or could reframe setbacks and use failure at work.
Failure is a learning experience because it is impossible to expect the winning result or everything to be good all the time. It's a part of the process. The great aspect of failure is that you get to assess what went wrong, and there are many situations where there was one small detail that if you corrected it, you would have got a different outcome.
Mm.
And I think in the workplace, you don't hit a target in the first quarter. Well, you get to assess what went wrong there. This is something that you can sit down and assess individually because you always have to look in the mirror first, and then apply it in a team concept or of a corporate concept where we get to go and watch game film on ourselves to correct those mistakes and improve. Because, as I said before, learning what and identifying what that mistake is only one aspect. Then you have to apply changes to whatever that failure garnered, whatever those mistakes were. So failure to me has never been something that I've looked at as a deterrent, because you always have to find a way to bounce back. You're going to have losing seasons. You're going to have down years in your career where you don't average the most points. But how do you bounce back from that? How do you restructure your approach? And sometimes that also means that you have to be open to change.
Sure, and this is when resilience, I mean, real resilience, we use the word resilience all the time now, and I think it's kind of lost impact in some ways, but that's when real resilience kind of kicks in. So one of your things I know is that mental resilience is maybe the greatest competitive advantage for a leader. Let me ask you this. What does resilient leadership actually look like day to day? Could you focus on that?
Resilient leadership now means, first of all, being able to remove your ego. Because in sports, first of all, the star player is not always the leader. Being able to be led at times, remaining coachable, accepting feedback, being willing to make changes, having a collective mindset now is more important than it was 15 years ago, because a huge part of leadership is understanding the people around you.
For sure.
The staff and your teammates need to be seen, heard, and supported differently than they needed 15 years ago. There are elements of mental health. There are elements of skill set. People are smarter. They've evolved in different ways. Then you have AI technology, so skill sets are even more apparently different. And sometimes having a collective mindset as the leader or the star means that you can take a step back for a week and allow someone else to run the show to get the result that everyone wants. The star player does not always have to be the leader.
How can you create a better, a stronger, a more effective team culture where discipline and accountability are empowering rather than, just plain old exhausting, Jazz?
First of all, you have to build relationships outside of the workplace. I would say camaraderie, interpersonal relationships, because when you feel like you know someone on a more personal level, on not just a corporate or just a sport level, you can hold them accountable, and it's less of a personal attack or feeling that they may feel. Many people take things personal.
Sure.
We all have egos, especially in high performing environments. So I think that's one of the effective ways to do so. And just also leading by example, not asking someone to do something that they think you wouldn't do or that you haven't proven that you've done.
Yeah.
And once you can build those kind of relationships, I think you have a much more ability to be effective in that space.
Yeah. It's much easier to get somebody to, I don't know, ask a question at a seminar if you get up and do it yourself first.
Absolutely.
If you kind of share the confidence almost, don't you? If for anybody who is an executive, a busy executive, a leader, a salesperson, whatever they do, listening, watching at the moment, this is a really difficult question to answer, I think. But I'll ask it anyway, is there a daily habit that maybe you could adopt to immediately give yourself a higher performance mindset? Does that even make any sense, that question? Is there one thing you could do to give yourself a boost, I suppose?
I'd say intentionally affect the people around you with your energy first.
Okay.
Because I actually had this situation with one of my current clients. He relayed to me that he's not the most empathetic leader.
Right.
And I told him that to get the most out of the people around you, especially when they look at you as our sole leader, you have to make them feel like you understand them. You have to set the tone, first of all, with your energy of having a positive mindset. Be encouraging. Be someone who asks questions. Don't only be a problem solver, but be integrative and interactive with people, because they want to feel included now. People want to feel like you are a part of the daily life. It's not a sign a contract, cut me a check, and we don't need a relationship kind of situation anymore. This was the older kind of way of thinking, but to get the most out of people, I would say give people the opportunity to feed off of your energy every single day.
Okay. So, and make that effort every single day.
Every single day.
We all get to this point, I think, in careers, and I've certainly hit this a few times. I feel like I've been working hard. I'm not really getting anywhere. I know I'm giving it what I think is 100%. I feel like it's 100%. But when you get to that, and it's almost like you're at the wall and you can't quite get over it. What do athletes do differently when they hit the wall, as it were?
Oh, athletes for sure change something up in their approach, whether it's dieting, whether it's changing a physical trainer, even recalibrating your entire off-season schedule. to take a step back and assess your daily habits, your production, and really game plan to see what the next step is, because they do say that insanity is doing the same thing repeatedly and expecting a different result. So having an open mind to change something, that's the first step.
Right.
But then actually changing something.
Yeah, okay.
Because sometimes when you realize that it's time to change something, it's uncomfortable.
For sure.
And
it's action. You
and
mean.
that uncomfortability can be discouraging. It can be a determining factor for you to say, I'd rather just continue with this mediocre result or this feeling that I don't need to get out of my comfort zone for. Yeah. So I would say for sure be open to change and then try something different.
You might be limiting yourself and just not realizing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think most of us limit ourselves due to the aspect of being comfortable and fear of change, fear of loss, and
Fear of failure, fear of all sorts of, yeah.
Surely fear of failure. And honestly, failure is not that bad because you can pick yourself up off the ground and try again, as long as you're not doing something extreme.
It's a good point, actually. Final question for you, Jazz. We're just kind of kicking off 2026. The one mindset shift, and I don't know if you do this with your clients, that the one thing that might dramatically improve performance, but also, and I think this is a really key word here, also fulfillment at work. Because I think, work is fine. You go there, you make the money, you live your life, but you've got to do something. If you can, if you're lucky enough to be in this situation, you've got to do something that means something to you, that you hopefully you like.
Yes.
Haven't you?
You have to believe in yourself. I think if you're doing something that is, I would say, for my passion. So I've been fortunate enough to live out my passion my entire adult life. And I would say that if I didn't genuinely believe in myself to the point where sometimes I was delusional with how good I was, I would always think I'm the best player on the floor no matter what. Sometimes you have to think that you are the best real estate agent in Dubai. You have to feel like you are the best CEO in your field. And that belief will allow you to generate energy that you may not have had. Because if you are truly ambitious, if you are truly looking to take strides in a way that you've never taken before, your mind has to be almost tricked a little bit to put you in a place of understanding that I can do this. And then you apply.
This is the message I've got from you 3 times today. And it's the confidence and it's the ability to do it, but it's applying it. It's actually doing it.
Yes.
So that's the step, isn't it?
Absolutely.
That I suppose lots of us, I'm pointing at myself here, what am I that we're all kind of scared of, I suppose. Jazz Ferguson is a pro basketball player. He is a mental performance coach. I've really enjoyed talking to you. I don't often get a chance to talk about Muhammad Ali, so I thank you for that as well, but appreciate you coming in, Jazz.
I appreciate you guys having me. This was great.
It's good fun. It's Mira Business FM. This is The Morning Drive. Get in touch with the show. Tell us what you think on social media. Like and subscribe. Always appreciated. And remember, everything we do is available to listen and or watch again on the website, on YouTube, or wherever you get podcasts from. Just look for Mira Business FM.